right, welcome to the Young Turks coverage of the dumpster fire known as the Trump announcement. So he is supposed to announce that he's running for president. Is he going to? Who knows? So I've thought that he was going to run for president from day one. I'm not some sort of savant for thinking that. Everybody thinks that. But there is a minority of folks who say, no, he's not, who said all along he was never going to run. He's too scared. I don't know. They had other reasons. They were guys we've had on the show like Michael Cohen, who was this former lawyer and fixer. It's Mary Trump, his relative, his cousin, I think she is. What's that? Niece. Yeah, I think you're right, Edwin. Thank you. And some others who I thought were foolishly naive. Now, after the midterms, though, he has suffered stinging losses, and now all right-wing media has come on DeSantis' side, and so people were beseeching him to change his mind and to not run. So is it possible that he will say tonight that hasn't made up his mind yet? He won't say that he's not running. That would be shocking, right? He most likely will say that he's running. Is there some small chance that he does a cop-out? Yes, there is. Because the one thing that Trump does fear, and he didn't have any legitimate fear of it until the midterm elections, is humiliation. He doesn't want to be humiliated, he doesn't want to be embarrassed. And if DeSantis beats him real bad in the primaries, and he goes out, not even in a general election, but gets humiliated within a Republican primary, yeah, he'd definitely be worried about that. I mean, he can huff and puff about how it was all fake news and he didn't really come in fifth in Iowa, but he would be devastated, psychologically devastated by that, right? So now we don't know if he runs, by the way, does he have a chance of winning? Definitely. I keep changing the odds on it because new information keeps coming in, and you should change how you perceive something's gonna happen, whether something's gonna happen based on actual data and information. So before the midterm elections, I thought that he was the clear favorite. Now I float around 50-50 depending on the day as to whether DeSantis can beat him, because yes, you're seeing a wall of media, you can call it media, you can call it marketing, you could even call it propaganda, saying that all the Republicans now hate Donald Trump. And they hate as in they think he would be a bad candidate and he would lead to losses for them, and they don't want him to be the Republican candidate for president. But none of them are voters. They're all politicians and media figures and the powerful. So the voters haven't weighed in at all yet. And when they do, they might be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. We still love Trump. Remember, the Republicans didn't lose, Donald Trump didn't lose in these midterm elections in a primary. They lost in the general elections. In a primary, the Trump candidate still won, and in most of the cases, won easily and overwhelmingly. So if you think Trump's gone, well, you might see in a minute, he's never gone. He's like that character in What About Bob that Bill Murray played. You think he's gone? He's not gone. So he's the Frankenstein that keeps rising time and time again. So we're gonna do live play-by-play on his announcement here. We'll call out his lies, his BS, etc. I assume we'll pull it up when it comes up. He's supposed to be speaking at 9 o'clock. We just got to 9 o'clock. So as soon as he's up there, we will show you what he's gonna say. And I will, at a minimum, make facial expressions, usually making fun of him. But you know, we're the fair show in America. So if he says something that's true, we'll definitely tell you that as well. And it does happen from time to time, but not that often. Is he, and what is he gonna say about, if he's running, what is he gonna say about the fact that he's running? Well, you know what he's gonna say. He's gonna do the usual, like, I'm the best, and you guys are gonna get tired of winning. And to be fair to Donald Trump, he was so close. He was just one letter off. It turns out that he was gonna whine so much we were gonna get tired of whining. Okay, but the winning hasn't really happened yet in terms of the Republican Party under Donald Trump, with the great exception of Donald Trump himself in 2016, he won. But he's never had coattails, he's never gotten victories for any other Republicans. He clearly cost the Republicans the Senate in the special elections in 2020 in Georgia, for sure, but people were still too scared of him to say that clearly. But now he's cost them the Senate again, and has greatly narrowed what was going to be a larger victory for them in the House. All right, so as you can tell there, the C-SPAN camera is not in an ideal place. So that's the first thing we can tell about the speech, and we hope that they're going to either move the camera or everybody's going to put down their phones.
President and First Lady of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump.
In fact, I saw Melania. I didn't even see Donald Trump there in the beginning, but they are there. Oh, I love that song. Please don't ruin it. Okay, and I know I'm super corny for liking that song, but I do. So it's unsurprising that at Mar-a-Lago, he's gonna have a room full of ass kissers. So to them, this is like their Messiah arriving. And that's why you shouldn't count him out. MAGA still thinks he's the original Messiah. He's their God, their demigod, however you want to phrase it. By the way, watch our videos of MAGA fans and Republicans at rallies in Miami and in other places. They're up on youtube.com/theyoungturks right now. And what they show you is when we asked Trump or DeSantis, everyone said Trump. And that was before the midterms, and it was at a Trump rally, to be fair. So there's a huge caveat, right? But having said that, they were in Florida, and not one person said DeSantis. And so this is classic Trump, where he walks around like the wrestlers do. But in the old days, they had like the feather boas and will prance around and stuff and point at people. He usually does YMCA in this moment and then sings to like the gay national anthem without realizing it. So all of that is fun. All right, so he's getting ready to speak here. We'll see if he hugs a flag. And then obviously when he's talking, will bring me down, but only a little bit, okay? And it's, oh, by the way, other things to look out for here is how scorched earth does he go? Usually the answer is 20 out of 10, but that's usually against Democrats and Republicans that he knows he can break the backs of. In this case, he's got a real competitor for the first time in his life in the Republican Party in DeSantis. How much will he rip into DeSantis? That is a very good question. Also, how much will he rip into Fox News? Now that Murdoch has laid down the law and said, we are definitely not going to support you, we're going to support DeSantis. By the way, I like that Fox News has preordained who they are going to support in a presidential campaign. What part of that is news? Also true of Wall Street Journal and New York Post. All right, here we go, Donald Trump. He's soaking in the applause and the music and the adoration. This is his favorite thing in the world. Look, he can't help himself. He's like smiling, he's happy. He loves this.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of Melania, myself, and our entire family, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special occasion at a very special place. You and all of those watching are the heart and soul of this incredible movement and the greatest country in the history of the world. It's very simple. There's never been anything like it. This great movement of ours, never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done.
Yeah, there'll never be anything like it again after he destroys democracy and replaces it with fascism.
My fellow citizens, America's comeback starts right now.
He's definitely right. Yeah, so it's, and he filed, so
2 years ago, when I left office, the United States stood ready for its golden age. Our nation was at the pinnacle of power, prosperity, and prestige, towering above all rivals, vanquishing all enemies, and striding into the future, confident and so strong. In 4 short years, everybody was doing great. Men, women, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, everybody was thriving like never before.
He's reading off a prompter.
There was never a time like this. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. When the virus hit our shores, I took decisive action and saved lives and the U.S. economy.
Did you?
And by October of the same year, America was roaring back with the #1 fastest economic recovery ever recorded. How about that?
Which led to inflation.
All of the incoming administration and all they had to do was just sit back and watch. Inflation was non-existent. Our southern border was by far the strongest ever. And because the border was so tight, drugs were coming into our country at the lowest level in many, many years. Importantly, after decades of rising energy costs, the United States had finally attained the impossible dream of American energy independence, which soon would have turned into energy dominance.
So that's a fiction. All of our oil is sold in international markets. We are not, quote unquote, independent at all.
China was reeling and back on its heels. You've never seen that before, because the United States was outdoing them on every single front, and China was paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs. The farmers know that because they got 28 billion of it. No president had ever sought or received $1 for our country from China until I came along, and we were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. Many people think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election.
Here we go.
Just saying.
Okay, here comes the whining and crying and complaining.
Instead of jobs and factories leaving America for China, they were for the first time ever leaving China for America.
China, not true. None of that is true. Most of the outsourcing continued unabated under Trump.
Because of our historic tax and regulation cuts, the biggest in both categories in history, bigger even than what Ronald Reagan was able to produce, and he produced a lot. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were in check and respected. They respected the United States, and quite honestly, they respected me. I knew them well. I knew them well.
No, man, world leaders literally laughed at him at the United Nations. They laughed out loud, and he got humiliated.
Was decimated by me and our great warriors in less than 3 weeks, and al-Baghdadi, its founder, was hunted down and killed. North Korea had not launched a single long-range missile since my summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un nearly 3 years before. We developed a relationship, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing, very good thing, actually, because look at what's happening today. My opponents made me out to be a warmonger and just a terrible person who would immediately go into war. They said during the 2016 campaign that if he becomes president, there will never be a war within weeks, and we will have wars like you've never seen before. It will happen immediately, and yet I've gone decades without a war. The first president to do it.
You went decades. You were president for 4 years.
A period.
He was president for 4 years. How could he have gone decades without a war? The guy doesn't even try to make sense.
Was prospering, and our country was on track for an amazing future because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them.
No, the only promise he kept was tax cuts for the rich. That's the only thing he passed. Did you guys get the wall? You didn't get the wall. Did you stop immigration, illegal immigration? No, you didn't. The numbers are very similar under Biden as they were under Trump. He makes it sound like nobody was crossing the border under him. That's not remotely true. And by the way, the reason he's soft-spoken here is because he's reading off a teleprompter.
Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation, something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election. Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased, and our country is being invaded by millions and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border. The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something.
Notice he said that he was against wars, and then talked about how Biden was wrong for withdrawing from Afghanistan. And by the way, that was part of a treaty that he negotiated.
And even
it never makes any sense.
That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But our enemies are speaking of us with scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland. And people are going absolutely wild and crazy, and they're not happy. They are very, very angry. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences, was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment of all things.
But you made 1,000 mistakes and you were impeached twice.
He calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent. And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating. The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about. And yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years.
It's not what they're saying.
About nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries with one shot. Something is wrong with their thinking. Under Biden and the radical Democrats, America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before. But we are here tonight to declare that it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way.
Just going back to the oldies. Scare the living hell out of everyone, blame the others.
We were a great nation, and soon we will be a great nation again. The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground. This decline is not a fate we must accept. When given the choice, boldly, clearly, and directly, I believe the American people will overwhelmingly reject the left's platform of national ruin, and they will embrace our platform of national greatness and glory to America. Glory.
One of our members, John Foolery 101, said he has the same haircut as my 86-year-old grandma.
Our citizens voted in the important midterm elections, and despite a ridiculously long and unnecessary period of waiting, far longer, in fact, than any third world country, just a short time ago, the Republicans won back control of the House of Representatives.
Even though none of your candidates won.
It was with a great Trump-endorsed candidate, Congressman-elect Kevin Kiley, who is a fantastic person.
To be fair and accurate, he did have a couple of candidates win. That's why he's naming them by name. There were so few.
That did it, but we now won back. This happened just an hour ago. Much criticism is being placed on the fact that the Republican Party should have done better, and frankly, much of this blame is correct. But the citizens of our country have not yet realized the full extent and gravity of the pain our nation is going through, and the total effect of the suffering is just starting to take hold. They don't quite feel it yet, but they will very soon. I have no doubt that by 2024, it will sadly be much worse, and they will see much more clearly what happened and what is happening to our country, and the voting will be much different. 2024.
He's trying to set up certain things that if they happen, he's going to say, I told you so. Like if, God forbid, a nuclear bomb goes off, he's going to say, I told you. What does he mean by the voting's going to be way worse than 24?
I am too. I do want to point out that in the midterms, my endorsement success rate was 232 wins and only 22 losses. You don't hear that from the media.
There were extreme candidates he supported, not the 232 general Republicans who ran.
I'm going to use the term fake news media. So we're going to keep it very elegant. But you don't hear that from the media. But I think you will, because people are starting to see what happened. That's some score. And in the primaries was 98.6%. But they were still trying to blame me. And the reason for the success and that unprecedented success rate is that the Trump administration changed our nation on trade, on securing the border. We're the strongest, safest border ever in the history of our country. On Islamic terrorism, we had practically just about, not that I can think of, no Islamic attacks, terrorist attacks during the Trump administration. And in fact, we got along very well with the various countries, including coming up with the Abraham Accords. That's a great thing, the Abraham Accords.
By the way, we had no Islamic terror attacks under Biden either.
Taxes and cutting regulations at the highest level ever, and on building the greatest economy. Any time in the history of the world, there's never been an economy like we had just 2 years ago. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope. And we must all work very hard for a gentleman and a great person named Herschel Walker, a fabulous human being who loves our country and will be a great United States Senator. Herschel Walker, get out and vote for Herschel, and he deserves it.
He's trying to show that he still has political power.
He'll be an even better senator. Get out and vote for Herschel Walker. We elected a group of incredibly talented America First leaders who will be stars of our party for many years to come.
Really? Who?
In the popular vote, another thing that's not discussed for the House, we must remember that Republicans won 5 million more votes, the largest margin in many, many years, over the Democrats. 5 million more votes. That's a big thing. Breaking the radical Democrats' grip on Congress was crucial. So in other words, because of our great congressmen and all of our great congressmen and congresswomen, we have taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, of course, it was supposed to be a red wave that was much larger, but it didn't materialize because a lot of Trump's candidates were so extreme that they wound up losing very winnable races, including some races where they had a 98% likelihood of winning.
Lower standard, you're going to have a big victory. They said, let's win by 40 seats. Let's win by 50. I said, if you win by 2 seats, be happy. But she's on her way to another country right now. She's been fired. But we always have known that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use, 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
All right, well, it's on. Here we go. Civil war within the Republican Party, a spectacle I have not seen in my life. There's been a lot of fake fights within the Republican Party. There's been almost no fights within the Democratic Party. This is going to be a battle royale. This is going to be a real fight. And last time around, he ran against a bunch of wimps, political hacks who'd never been challenged before, like him. DeSantis, we'll see if he's a different animal or not.
Here tonight is such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy. If you want to know the truth, it really is.
Yeah, I told you at the beginning, he just loves the adoration.
Together, we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening, this is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. This is a job for grandmothers and construction workers, firefighters, builders, teachers, doctors, and farmers who cannot stay quiet any longer. You can't stay quiet any longer. You're angry about what's happening to our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hard-working parent, for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly. These are great people that can straighten out the crime. They're the ones that know how to do it. We have to give them back their respect and their dignity. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together.
So he just talked about you have to respect cops, except if they're the FBI raiding that exact building, Mar-a-Lago, right? In which case they said defund the FBI.
Strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth. We love them all. And we love both sides. We're going to bring people together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, you wouldn't believe it. People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible, like never before. And then COVID started coming in from China. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things, but it was devastating, and we built it back and did an incredible job. But when people say Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives, I say we can all get together. And we were doing that. That was happening just prior, because the success was greater than this country has ever had. We were leapfrogging China and leapfrogging everybody else, and everybody wanted a piece of it.
So Trump's the great unifier.
But just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice. I am your voice. The Washington establishment wants to silence us, but we will not let them do that. What we have built together over the past 6 years is the greatest movement in history, because it is not about politics. It's about our love for this great country, America, and we're not going to let it fail. I am running because I believe the world has not yet seen the true glory of what this nation can be. We have not reached that pinnacle, believe it or not. In fact, we can go very far. We're going to have to go far. First, we have to get out of this ditch. And once we're out, you'll see things that nobody imagined for any country. It's called the United States of America, and it's an incredible place. We are Americans, and we do not have to endure what has taken place in Washington, D.C. This is our country, our government, and the corridors of power, they're our corridors. They're not their corridors. These are our corridors. And we are coming to take those corridors back.
Does that include Jimmy Carter? Are you also taking Jimmy Carter back and all the Carters you're taking?
Election day in 2024, which will come very quickly. We'll go, look at how time flies. Look how fast it's all going. I will fight like no one has ever fought before.
Wow.
We will defeat the radical left Democrats that are trying to destroy our country from within, and likewise protect us all. We want to protect us. We have to be protected from all of those nations out there that are looking to destroy us from beyond our shores. There are lots of nations that hate us gravely. And that's the problem. When they look at us in disarray like we are right now, when we go to them begging for oil and we have more liquid gold under our feet than they have or any other nation has, and we don't use it because we're going to them, it's crazy what's happening. We can't let it continue. Joe Biden is the face of left-wing failure and Washington corruption. He had a big G20 dinner tonight. Everybody flew over to wherever they flew over, and guess what? He never showed up. They're still looking for him. What's going on? G20, I used to love that, the leaders. I used to make deals for our country like you wouldn't believe. It was one, give me the next one, give me the next one. And we got them to stop taking advantage of our country. Every nation took advantage of our country. We renegotiated deals with Mexico and Canada, USMCA. We got rid of the worst trade deal ever made. NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. That's why the farmers love Trump, because we did a great job, but manufacturers also. And we did a deal, we restructured our terrible deal with Japan, and I did it with Prime Minister Abe, a great man who unfortunately is so sad. He was a great friend of mine, but a great man, loved his country so much, but we restructured and made it a really terrific deal, and with South Korea and so many other countries. And the best of all was what we did to China. We made an incredible deal, but after COVID, I don't even bother talking about it because the devastation that caused for the entire world was too much to bear. I will ensure that Joe Biden does not receive 4 more years in 2020.
Too late. Yeah, you lost him in 2020.
Our country could not take that. And I say that not in laughter. I say that in tears. Our country could not take 4 more years. It can only take so much. It's all very fragile to start off with. It can only take so much. In 2020, I received the largest number of votes of any sitting president in history by a lot. And we will do it again, but with even more votes this time. Many have noted that huge gains we have made with Latino voters, and I believe we will set even greater records with this crucial vote in 2024. The Hispanic voter, the Latino voter has been unbelievable. Great people, very entrepreneurial people, and they want security. And everyone thought when I did the wall, I built the wall, and they thought, oh, that would hurt me with the Hispanic vote. No, it helped me because they understood. They wanted safety. They wanted security. And they understood the border better than anybody else. So they were amazed that we started that trend, and now we're continuing with that trend. You look at what we've done in Florida, what everybody's doing now in Florida and Texas, along the border in Texas, won every single community. I won every single community. Governor of Texas called. Great gentleman, just got reelected. And he said to me, I'd like to talk to you for a second. Well, he said, you've done something that nobody else has done. You've won every single area along the borders, the longest since Reconstruction. I said, Reconstruction? I guess you call that the Civil War? That's what I call it? That's what I call it. Governor Abbott, very good man, and he's working hard, but it's horrible because what's happening is they're just sending hundreds of thousands of people right through his state, right through Arizona, right through all of the states. What's happening is they're coming up all of the states. And we can't have it anymore. This campaign will be about issues, vision, and success, and we will not stop. We will not quit until we've achieved the highest goals and made our country greater than it has ever been before, and we can do that. We can do it. Victory will be built upon big ideas, bold ambitions, and daring dreams for America's future. We need daring dreams. It is not enough merely to complain or oppose. We don't want to be critics. We don't want to be complainers. I never wanted to be a critic. I never respected critics. They tell people what's wrong, but they can't do it themselves. We will win because we will fight with every measure of our strength and with every ounce of our energy to lift up the working men and working women of America and to restore the fabric of this nation. The radical left Democrats have embraced an extreme ideology of government domination and control. Our approach is the opposite, one based on freedom, values, individual responsibility, and just plain common sense. It's common sense.
He said, I'm not a whiner. It's kind of like when Nixon said, I'm not a crook.
In 2 years, the Biden administration has destroyed the U.S. economy, just destroyed it. With victory, we will again build the greatest economy ever. It will take place quickly. We will build the greatest economy ever. And if you remember, I did it twice. I did it before COVID and then handed off something where the stock market was higher than just prior to COVID coming in. And we did it twice, and we will do it again, but this time we'll do it bigger, stronger, better than anybody can even imagine. And one of the beautiful things of the pause, if there is such a thing as a beautiful thing, but one of the important factors of the pause is that we see how bad they've done. So we will be able to do it properly, and it will be much easier. Everybody will agree with us because everybody sees what a bad job has been done during this 2-year period, and it will be a 4-year period. Everybody sees that. It will be much easier for us to do what has to be done.
He's calling the Biden administration the pause between his two terms.
We will immediately tackle inflation and bring down to a level that it was, we were at 0, but actually the best number is 1%. Do you know that? You don't want it really 0. But we were at 0. We actually got it to exactly 1%, the perfect number. One thing every economist agrees, don't have it 0, have it like at 1%. They even say 1 to 2, but I said, let's do 1. And we had it at 1%, and we had it there for a long period of time, and we had the value of the dollar. We had it so that this country could make a lot of money. And I fought other countries where they devalued their dollar, or they devalued their currency, whether it was the pound or whether it was the yuan or the yen. And I used to fight like cats and dogs with the leaders of other countries because they were stealing from us. When they did that, they had artificial devaluations of their currency. It's a very important thing. I haven't even heard it mentioned in 2 years. That's a very important thing. It's very hard for us to compete when they do that artificially. And they had to pay a big price when they did it. And they never really did it for very long. I said, we're not going to do business with you anymore as a country. And they believed me. And they let it go back up. Instead of putting America last, as the Biden administration has done very, very openly and bravely, because I can't imagine saying, let's put America last. I think it takes courage. We will again put America first.
Oh, Roger Stone is in the house.
Every policy.
He's sounding the themes from 2016.
Thank you very
Go
much.
back to the winning campaign.
We do
that he
love our
had.
country, isn't it? That's why we're here. I didn't need this. I had a very nice, easy life. This is something I didn't need, and a lot of you people don't need either, but we love our country, and we have to take care of our country. We have to save our country. Every policy must be geared toward that which supports the American worker, the American family, and businesses, both large and small, and allows our country to compete with other nations on a very level playing field, which we never had until I came along and the Trump administration came along. And now we're losing it. They're moving back into China. They're moving back into these other countries. It's horrible. That means low taxes, low regulations, and fair trade, much of which I've already completed, but now will even greatly enhance. Other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into the American marketplace. They have to pay to come into our country and make all of that money, take it away from us. And thanks to the Trump administration, still the best and the biggest country in the world is what we have. We have the best and the biggest. If you remember, for many years, you can look in your projection books, China was going to take over from us as the largest economy in the world in 2018 or 2019. I said, I don't like that timing. And I was with President Xi, who's now president for life. I call him king. He said, no, I'm not the king. I said, yes, you are the king. You're president for life. It's the same thing.
Which is what
But I said,
Trump
President, you can't do these things. You can't. Remember, they had China 25. That means China was going to take over virtually the whole world economy by 25. I said, that's not a nice sign. I don't want that sign. They took it down. They took down the whole slogan. Probably will be coming back at some point in the near future. But I found it very insulting. I said, I find that very insulting. On day one, we will end Joe Biden's war on American energy.
In other words, we'll serve oil companies for donations, political contributions.
You will see energy costs come down, and because energy is so big and so important, you will see inflation dropping. You will see it come down. It's a thing of beauty, and you wouldn't think it's that complicated. Now, what has been complicated a little bit is what's happened to so many other things. I believe originally started by this energy disaster. We were $1.87 a gallon for gasoline, and now it's hitting $5, $6, $7, and even $8, and it's going to go really bad. The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, and the many crippling regulations that it has spawned, will be immediately terminated so that our country can again breathe and grow and thrive like it should.
It hasn't even been implemented yet. It's just making things up.
It's very, very much hurting our country. Germany tried it, Germany tried it. They were up for about a year. Remember I sent to Angela. Remember Angela? Do you remember Angela? Nobody's remembering her now.
No,
Angela Merkel. A white flag of surrender. She said, but why do you send this to me, Donald? I said, Angela, I send it to you because this is a flag of surrender. You are getting 78% of your energy from Russia. And when that happens, history has proven that is not good for Germany. Just take a look over the last 150 years. It hasn't been good. What I didn't know would take place so fast. And Germany closed, as you know, all of its coal-powered plants and its nuclear plants. They closed everything, and now they're building coal plants, and they're building them fast. And China's building a coal plant every week. Every week they open up another, and then they talk about all of the things that they do environmentally. They are watching us die with the Green New Deal, with our windmills and with our solar that doesn't have the power to fire up our great factories and our great plants. They are watching us die, and they're laughing as it happens. Remember, economic security is national security, and that's what it is. We need economic security.
The Green New Deal has not been implemented.
To eliminate America's dependence on China. We will bring our supply chains, which are a disaster right now. You can't get anything, and good luck getting a turkey for Thanksgiving. Number one, you won't get it, and if you do, you're going to pay 3 to 4 times more than you paid last year. But we will bring our supply chains and manufacturing base back home, as we were strongly doing during the Trump administration, and we will systematically bring back wealth, health, and success to the American middle class and to America itself.
Are people leaving?
Please.
That crowd is actually very subdued. You know why? It's the rich folks at Mar-a-Lago.
Please sit down. I feel so guilty having you stand.
Oh, he noticed they were leaving. Oh, that was hilarious.
For the whole event.
No, they're all sitting except for those that stood up to leave.
To every worker and family struggling to survive in the Biden economy with inflation destroying your family and your life, this campaign will be for you. Help is on the way. Joe Biden has abolished America's borders. We are going to restore and secure America's borders just like we had them before, best ever. We built the wall, and now we will add to it. Now, we built the wall, we completed the wall, and then we said, let's do more, and we did a lot more. And as we were doing it, we had an election that came up, and when they came in, they had 3 more weeks to complete the additions to the wall, which would have been great, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. And that's when I realized that they actually want to have this disaster known as open borders. Hard to believe, isn't it?
There are no open borders.
We had so much success at the border was because of the fact that 2 things. We got Mexico to give us free of charge 28,000 soldiers. That helps. And President of Mexico is a great gentleman, by the way. Socialist, but that's okay. He can't have everything. But he's a great man and a great friend of mine. But 28,000 soldiers while we were building the wall. And then when the wall was finished, that's how we set all these records. We have records that nobody can even compete with. Right now, it's a disaster. I believe it's 10 million people coming in, not 3 or 4 million people. They're pouring into our country. We have no idea who they are and where they come from. We have no idea what's happening to our country. We're being poisoned. Within moments of my inauguration, catch and release will be gone forever. Remain in Mexico.
He disagreed with what was in the prompter.
Which was so
prompter
important.
Had lower numbers. He's like, no, 10 million.
They remained here and they never left. And you couldn't get them, you couldn't find them. I had a policy, remain in Mexico. And if you think it was easy for me to get the president of Mexico to agree to that, it wasn't. But we got it. And they terminated it. Can you believe? So now they come in here and they stay and we have no idea where they are. They get lost. And it's very dangerous for our country. And again, I'll say, we're going to pay a big price someday for what they're doing. We will begin the process of safely removing the illegal alien criminals that have been unlawfully allowed into our country. We have no choice. We have no choice. And in restoring border security, we will stop the flow of deadly drugs and horrible human trafficking, which both have been set upon us like never before. The human trafficking, you think of it as an ancient thing. It's not ancient. Because of the internet, human trafficking is worse than it's ever been in history. And we stop them at the southern border, which is the #1 port all over the world, the southern border. So much comes through the southern border. #1 port, and we stopped them, and now it's at levels that are many, many, many times what it was just 2 years ago. Biden and the radical left had let loose on this total breakdown of law and order. It was a total breakdown of law and order. I will restore public safety in American cities and other communities that need our help. And if they don't want our help, we're going to insist that they take our help this time. Because, you know, the Democrat governors, these are all Democrat cities. The governors and mayors are supposed to ask for the help, and they would never ask for the help. And yet people are being shot and killed at random like nobody's ever seen before. And we sent in the National Guard in Minneapolis and in other places. In Seattle, we went and we were getting ready to go, and they took over part of the city. And the governors, the Democrats don't want to ever ask to do anything because they don't want to shake things up. In the meantime, the cities are rotting, and they are indeed cesspools of blood. So we're going to go and help them even if they don't want the help. We will give our police back their authority, resources, power, legal protection, and we will give them back their respect. They're great people. And I will immediately launch a no-holds-barred national campaign to dismantle the gangs and clean out the nests of organized street crime. You know, the worst criminals, the worst gangs are MS-13. And under the Barack Hussein Obama administration, they were unable to take them out because their countries where they came from wouldn't take them. And I learned about that in my first day, I actually say. But I learned about it, and I said, which countries? And it was Honduras and Guatemala. It was El Salvador, some others. And I said, how much do we pay them? Sir, you pay them $750 million a year. That's a lot of money. I said, all right, stop payment. We're not paying them anymore because they wouldn't accept them. They would put planes on the runway. So when our plane would come out with these gang members from MS-13, the plane couldn't land because other planes were on the runway. The buses weren't allowed to get through their borders because they had stronger borders than we did by far. They had borders. We don't have borders. They had borders. Other countries that we defend have borders. We defend other countries' borders, but we don't defend our own. But these countries, and I got to know all of the presidents and prime ministers. I got to know them all. And I said, all right, stop payment of the $750 million a year. They won't take them. And you could not get anybody back in because they sent them out. They didn't just come out. They sent them out. They don't want the bad ones. They want to keep their good ones. They don't want the bad ones. These are gang members that will kill, and they like using knives because a knife is more painful than a gun. You've read the stories. MS-13. These are savages. They say, oh, please don't use that name. They're people. No, they're not. These are savages. And so we went along, and I said, stop payment of the $750 million. And I get a call the next morning from the presidents of every country that we're talking about. Sir, there seems to be a misunderstanding. What's the problem? Is there anything we can do? Yeah, you're not taking your MS-13 gang members back that you sent to us. In the caravans, I love the name, I came up with it. I love the name. The caravans, thousands and thousands of people. And in those caravans, you have some rough people. I said, you're not taking them back. Well, we didn't know that this was a problem, sir. Is there anything we can do? I said, yeah, take them back. We would be glad to take them back, sir. They took them back. I still didn't give them the 750, but that's okay.
So he's like, he brags about stiffing them. Like, of course I lied to them like I lied to you guys.
They were happy with 750, and now they want to give them $4 billion. Somebody someday is going to explain that one to me. It actually makes you rage with anger when you hear that. They wanted 750 so badly, and now they're getting $4 billion. We will wage war upon the cartels and stop the fentanyl and deadly drugs from killing 200,000 Americans per year. And I will ask Congress for legislation ensuring that drug dealers and human traffickers, these are terrible, terrible, horrible people who are responsible for death, carnage, and crime all over our country. Every drug dealer during his or her life on average will kill 500 people with the drugs they sell, not to mention the destruction of families. But we're going to be asking everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts, because it's the only way. We don't need any more blue ribbon committees. We don't need, I don't like to say this, and I don't even know if the American public is ready for it. And a lot of my people say, please don't say that, sir. That's not nice. They kill 500 people each on average.
No, they tell you not to say that because it isn't even close to true.
In China, when I was with President Xi, I said, President, do you have a drug problem? No, 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 we don't. He looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing. He said, no, we don't have a drug. How come you don't have a drug problem? He said, quick trial. What is a quick trial? Quick, I sort of knew. What is a quick trial? That's where if you get caught dealing drugs, you have an immediate and quick trial, and by the end of the day, you're executed. That's a terrible thing. But they have no drug problem. The only drug problem they have is they make the fentanyl that comes into our country, and I had him stopping it. And then when I was gone, nobody ever mentioned it to him again. We were stopping it. That was way down, that number, but they send it in. But they don't have a drug problem. Other countries like Singapore has no drug problem. No drug. You ask them, they don't even know what you're talking about when they say drug problem. They don't even know what you're talking about. They have no drug problem. Now, why should they sell there and risk their lives every time they sell when they can come to the United States and nobody even cares? They can do whatever they want to do and become rich. It's a disgrace. So if you want to get rid of that and also bring down your level of crime, probably 75 or 80%, that's the only answer. No more blue ribbon. I refuse to create them anymore. It was just a joke. It was New York people wanting to be on a committee for publicity reasons. No more blue ribbon committees. That's the only way you're going to solve the problem. And I hope politicians are listening because they should do it quickly. Joe Biden has also proven that he is committed to indoctrinating our children, even using the Department of Justice against parents who object. It's a terrible thing. It's so sad what's happening. When I'm in the White House, our schools will cease pushing critical race theory as they were. Radical civics and gender insanity. Or if they do that, they will lose all federal funding, but we'll get them to stop. And I will be the president who finally fixes education in America. We were doing great. We were starting to really get it right. We will not let men, as an example, participate in women's sports. Is that okay? No men. No men.
That gets the biggest applause line. Why does that get the biggest applause line? Because it doesn't have much to do with policy at all. It has to do with hate. They're like, yes, that's the most hateful one. I love it.
That's politically incorrect to say. I said, that's okay. I'll say it anyway, if you don't mind. We've had tremendous problems. And you know, it's very unfair to women, just very, very unfair. We will defend the rights of parents, and we will defend the family as the center of American life. But who would think, standing up here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that a politician, and I don't like to think of myself as a politician, but I guess that's what I am. I hate that thought. But that a politician would be up saying, we will defend parental rights. Of course you're going to defend it. Who would think that we even have to mention this? Who would think it even should be a subject to be talked about? We have to defend parental rights. Can you believe this? As commander-in-chief, I will get Biden's radical left ideology out of our military, and I did. And in the first day, they put it back. They signed an executive order, and they put it back. It was gone. We will abolish every Biden COVID mandate and rehire every patriot who was fired from our military with an apology and full back pay.
So he wouldn't let trans folks in the military. They were willing to risk their lives for America, and he said, we don't want you because we don't like equality.
They deserve full back pay, and they'll get it. And unlike Biden possibly getting us into World War III, which can seriously happen, I will keep America out of foolish and unnecessary foreign wars, just as I did for 4 straight years.
I have a bit of a controversial theory on this that we'll talk about after the speech.
Through strength. That's all it is. as events overseas have shown, to protect our people from the unthinkable threat of nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles, the United States must also build a state-of-the-art, next-generation missile defense shield. We need it. The power of these missiles and the power of a word that I refuse to say, nuclear. We have to have it. We need a defense shield. And we have to do it, and we actually have the technology, and we're going to build it. Just as I rebuilt our military, I will get this done. I rebuilt our entire military, which nobody talks about.
Yeah, it didn't exist before. It didn't exist at all. He rebuilt it.
That were 48 years old. We had bombers that were 60 years old. We had bombers where their grandfathers flew them when they were new. And now the grandchild is flying the bomber, but not anymore. But as I have said before, the gravest threats to our civilization are not from abroad, but from within. None is greater than the weaponization of the justice system, the FBI, and the DOJ. We must conduct a top-to-bottom overhaul to clean out the festering rot and corruption of Washington, D.C.
The rot of Washington, D.C. We did clear it out in 2020. And by the way, he calls, he implies that Biden doesn't speak well, and then says how he beat him, how he won in 2020. No, you lost in 2020.
Thank you. And I'm a victim, I will tell you. I'm a victim. Think of it. The FBI offered $1 million to Christopher Steele, who wrote the fake dossier, if he will lie and say that the fake dossier was true. And he refused to do it, so it had to be really fake. And then they hired somebody, Demchenko, for $200,000 a year to focus on Trump and to get Trump and other things, including the raid of a very beautiful house that sits right here. The raid of Mar-a-Lago, think of it. And I say, why didn't you raid Bush's place? Why didn't you raid Clinton? 32,000 emails. Why didn't you raid Clinton's place? Why didn't you do Obama, who took a lot of things with him? We will dismantle the deep state and restore government by the people.
They didn't raid Obama's place because he didn't steal any documents like you. And
to further drain the swamp, I will push for a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. It's time. It's time.
That's new. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that he's unveiling here.
And I will ask for a permanent ban on taxpayer funding of campaigns, a lifetime ban on lobbying by former members of Congress and cabinet members. Now I see what they make. They leave the White House or they leave Congress and they're paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. No, you have to have a ban. We want a ban on members of Congress getting rich by trading stocks with insider information. And many of our great members agree with that. They actually agree with that. And of course, we will do whatever it takes to bring back honesty, confidence, and trust in our elections.
Half those proposals make no sense. The other half are actually pretty good. We'll talk more about that too.
Voter ID, same-day voting, and only paper ballots.
Oh. Terrible. I'm going to do a summary of the speech at the end.
Only paper ballots.
That's the only way Republicans can win, is if they prevent you from voting more.
36 million people voted. It was all done by 10 o'clock in the evening. No complaints. You had a winner, you had a loser. The loser went home. The winner, he's a friend of mine, nice guy. But he was happy. But there was no complaints. And if there is a complaint, you check it out, and you can fix it very easily. You can find out what's going on. No. paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID. So simple. And we want all votes counted by election night.
What if it's too close to call? If that doesn't make any sense. And he said, no complaints. You're the one who complained. Back then, there was no complaining. Yeah, that's because you weren't around.
For machines and all of this stuff, and they end up 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. By that time, everyone forgot there was even an election. It's horrible. And this doesn't happen. I said it before. It doesn't happen in third world countries. They do better than we do. It's horrible what's happening with our election and election process. And I'll get that job done. That's a very personal job for me. I take that very personally.
Well, things that do benefit him personally, he does take more seriously.
National greatness agenda, and that's what we call it, a national greatness agenda, because our country can be greater than it ever was. Our country was great. Our country's not great anymore. Our country's a laughingstock right now. But our country can be greater than it ever was before, by a lot. There will be more, much more to come in the months ahead. There are so many things we can do. Many of them are not even hard to implement. The journey ahead of us will not be easy. Anyone who truly seeks to take on this rigged and corrupt system will be faced with a storm of fire that only a few could understand, right? I happen to have some children in the front row. They understand. In fact, my one boy, stand up, Eric.
Why would only children stand the storm in the fire? Maybe his children, I guess. He's bragging about that one of his kids showed up for the speech.
Than any man in the history of our country. So unfair. Al Capone, you all heard of the great gangster? Al Capone got far less. Billy the Kid got almost none. Jesse James, no. Eric Trump got more subpoenas. He's a PhD in subpoenas. They come from Congress. And I appreciate the job you do and the abuse that you've taken. I really do.
It feels like he's giving a shout out to his one remaining loyal kid. Probably the other kids didn't want him to run. Certainly Ivanka did not want him to run. Jared didn't want him to run. And Matt Gaetz didn't go to the speech. I don't know if Don Jr. is at the speech and he might mention him.
And it hasn't been a joyride for our great First Lady either. It hasn't been a joyride.
Well, yeah, that's because she's married to you. Her entire marriage to you has not been a joyride. That's why she slaps your hand away every time you try to hold it. He's pointing out like the 3 people who remain loyal that are left in the Mar-a-Lago bunker.
She says they do love her. I go home and she says, "You look angry and upset." I say, "Just leave me alone. I got." Hasn't been the easiest thing, but she's been a great First Lady and people love her.
He just said that he tells her to leave him alone, and that he's always angry and upset.
We will be resisted by the combined forces of the establishment, the media, the special interests, the globalists, the Marxist radicals, the woke corporations, the weaponized power of the federal government, the colossal political machines, the tidal wave of dark money, and the most dangerous domestic censorship system ever created by man or woman, the most dangerous system we've ever had. We will be attacked, we will be slandered, we will be persecuted just as I have been. I mean, I have been, but many people in this room have been. But we will not be intimidated. We will persevere. We will stand tall in the storm. We will march forward into the torrent. And we, in the end, will win. Our country will win. We will win. My fellow Americans, we will join together and reverse this staggering American decline, and it is staggering indeed. And we will again restore the spirit of our nation. And then we must build and raise up a legacy that will stand without equal in the entire history of the world. With your help, we will create communities where our children will grow up safe and strong, and a nation where they will grow up free, prosperous, and well. We will reestablish the principles of hard work and merit and end the scourge of homelessness that is plaguing our beleaguered Democrat-run cities. We will heal our divisions and bring our people back together through incredible success. We will defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We will expand the frontiers of human knowledge and extend the horizons of human achievement. And we will plant our beautiful American flag very soon on the surface of Mars, which I got started.
Space Force is back.
Everyone involved, we need everyone's help. We need to look out for one another. We need to be friends, and we need every patriot on board.
Yeah, because he did such a great job of unifying the country before.
This is a campaign. This is a quest to save our country. Talking about saving our country.
Is he pointing to his African American as he's done before?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am asking for your vote. I am asking for your support, and I am asking for your friendship and your prayers on this very incredible but dangerous journey. If our movement remains united and confident, then we will shatter the forces of tyranny and we will unleash the glories of liberty for ourselves and for our children and for generations yet to come. America's golden age is just ahead, and together we will make America powerful again.
Well, Napa. Nobody saw Napa coming.
Make America wealthy again.
Mawa.
We will make America strong again.
Massa, that sounds about right for him.
Make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America glorious again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to do a breakdown of the speech, and you might be a little surprised at my conclusions about the speech, because I thought it was half good, maybe even more than half good. What? Why? Well, I'm going to explain. And I'm going to explain, obviously, some of the absurdities and the lies in the speech as well. So that summary is coming up in a minute. And then I also am going to read some of your comments. I might even give away some money, fun for everybody, to all of our members. And you got to be a member, of course, to get the money. But and I want to thank all of our members that make this extra coverage possible. You guys are all wonderful. And speaking of which, by the way, Brittany just joined, and Bart McNeil just joined by hitting the join button below on YouTube. We appreciate it. And you could do likewise, and tyt.com/join for anyone not on YouTube. All right, so and I'll get to your comments in a minute. But first, let me do the summary. Okay, so Donald Trump just spoke and announced that he is running for president again. So it was unequivocal. So there was some question as to whether he was going to turn around before he gave the speech because of how disastrous the midterms were. But he gave a very standard Donald Trump speech, and in a lot of ways, that's pretty good for him. So I'll explain why it's good as we go along here. So he unveiled a plan that I think he's calling the National Greatness Agenda. He kind of said it as an aside in the speech. He talked about some new ideas he has for election reform, a couple of which I like. There's a lot of twists and turns in this analysis, okay, and a bunch that, of course, I don't like. Of course, the speech was riddled with lies and fabrications and weird bragging that doesn't make any sense, and misstatements, etc. And I'll hit some of those as well. But why did I even think that the speech was halfway decent? Well, the reason is because he went back to his 2016 themes. Guys, I'm not analyzing it based on whether I liked it. Of course, every part of it. No, again, to be fair, not every part, but overwhelming majority of the speech, it was absurd, right? But I'm not judging it based on accuracy. I'm judging based on whether he's going to do well in the Republican primary. And he was on a prompter tonight. And so they know that when he goes off prompter, he has trouble because he says some things that his audience loves, but he also makes mistakes. And he went off prompter a couple times and made mistakes. But whoever wrote the speech went back to classic Trump demagoguery. And in politics, that works. In the Republican Party, it works even better. So this speech was designed for the Republican voters and probably got the job done 80 to 90% of the way. I mean, this is just the very beginning. No one else has announced whether he can actually win an open question. I still have it at about 50-50. So if you're counting him out, don't. He hit all of his themes. So what are they? He talked about how he was going to keep everyone safe. And he kept talking about how I'm going to protect you. This is catnip for conservatives. Because the number one thing that conservatives have is fear. They're super afraid of everything. So he went back to talking about immigrants. He went back to talking about how they're criminals and illegal aliens that are invading our country. And they're so bad, and he's so tough on them. And he was tough on Honduras and El Salvador and all these different places. For a lot of you, that might turn you off, but for Republican voters, they're like, yes, right? Finally, I'm so scared in this, and big bad Donnie's back to protect me and be vicious to my opponents, whether they're the libs that they want to own here in the US or the others in other countries. He said, I am your voice. By the way, that is good politics to begin with, and for a lot of Republican voters, it's true. Whether you like that voice or not, he is their voice. By the way, why is he their voice? Because there's one thing he's really good at. He's a grade A con man. And in politics, that is a super useful skill set. That is as good an asset as you could have, because he's channeling the Republican voters. We've talked about this on Young Turks before. What he does is he A/B tests. He does trial and error. All the way back in 2013, 2014, he was going on conservative radio. I talk about it in my upcoming book, kind of upcoming. It's all the way in September. But anyway, if you want to pre-order, justicescomingbook.com. We'll have the link down below. Anyways, I show how in 2014 he would go on conservative talk and test, okay, do we like immigrants? And then boo, oh, we don't like immigrants. Yeah, and he's like, okay, good, write it down. We don't like immigrants. So he is just mirroring back to Republican voters what they like. So he is formidable in a Republican primary. If you're underestimating him, you're making a total mistake. He talked about love. It's kind of weird, right? No, but that's his attachment to his voters. They like to hear that. He talked about America and how great America is. Remember, they don't actually mean America. America is the United States Constitution, our democracy, and all the things that Donald Trump doesn't care about, has never read, American ideals. He doesn't like equality. He said over and over in the speech, I don't want the trans in the military. I don't want them in sports. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't want immigrants coming in here and being equal. No, he doesn't care about the idea of America, but the right wingers don't either. Republican voters think America as me. They say, I'm America, my family's America, my community's America. In a lot of ways, white people are America in their minds. So when he says, oh, America's great and we're gonna be wonderful again and we're gonna be prosperous and powerful, that's catnip. They love to hear it. He said, we're gonna save the country and get rid of the illegal alien criminals, okay? So these are, and then he talked about the globalists. These are the same exact themes that worked for him in 2016 in the primary and in the general election. So whoever wrote the speech did a good job of getting him back to those themes that has worked for him before. Now, the negative, horrible sides of the speech that unfortunately also work for right wingers. He talked about, quote, blood-soaked streets. He said, quote, there's cesspools of blood. He called immigrants savages, right? And he says, well, later they will say that he said it just about MS-13. No, he blended MS-13 in with undocumented immigrants, which he calls illegal aliens, with immigrants. And so who was he calling savages? It doesn't matter. The right wing thinks they're all savages. They love to hear it. If you hate to hear it, that means the right wingers probably love to hear it. But he did screw up a couple of times. Whenever he went off prompter, not in the facts, he makes up the facts all the time. For example, in the prompter it said 2 to 3 million illegal immigrants are coming in now a year. And he's like 2 to 3 million. He said it out loud. He reads it in the prompter. He's like 2 to 3 million. No, I think it's 10 million. Because he's just making up numbers, right? And he doesn't like that they wrote a low number. He wants the number to be higher. Well, truth is optional. But that's not what I'm referring to when I say he screwed up when he went off prompter. When he went off prompter, he said, I'm a victim. Okay. In the speech, there was almost no talk of the stolen election, but he ad-libbed it in a couple of places. There was a couple of lines in the speech that appeared to be written about 2020, but only a couple and only a grazing reference. Now, if you let Trump go off prompter, the entire speech would have been about 2020. That's why they put him on prompter. They're like, it's not working. That's not your best material. That's why we lost the midterms. All your guys lost the midterms. So let's go back to the golden oldies here. But the minute he goes off prompter, he's like, another thing he said is, we've been persecuted. I've been persecuted. So he's not gonna be able to help himself when he's on the campaign trail. He's gonna keep on talking about, oh, I'm the victim. At one point, he hilariously said, in this country when it was great, we didn't have whining. Dude, you're patient zero in whining. Okay, all you ever do is whine. And he said, I remember these great elections. We used to have them, you have it on one day and then it's over and no one complains. You're the one complaining, okay? No one contested the elections before. You're the one who's contesting the election. He's unbelievable, right? So, and then of course the absurdities rolled in. Caravans, I came up with that name. There's been caravans since the Silk Road. You did not come up with that name, you did not come up with that word. Before, he said that he came up with the word fake, that it didn't exist in the English language. Okay, guy's an actual verifiable lunatic. I mean, every once in a while he'll make fun of Biden as he did in this speech, about like, oh, he thought he was in Florida when he was in Idaho. That's why I'm so glad I beat him in 2020. Well, I mean, wait, what? Like he screws up the dates, he screws up the places all the time. And then it was a weird constant references to nuclear weapons. So I have a little bit of a controversial theory here. It's definitely speculation. So one thing that he's doing for sure, before I get to the speculation, is he's setting up a win-win for himself and a lose-lose for Biden. He's like, oh, can you believe they hit Poland? They would have never done Ukraine if I was in charge. And but I didn't start any wars. And nuclear is the worst thing. At one point, he hilariously said, that's why I never say the word nuclear. You just said it right there in that same sentence. But people like that too. They think even if it's funny because he's an idiot, still the right wing's like, it's so funny, man, he never says the word, but he said it right there. I love Trump, right? So, but why is he talking about that so often? Because number one, if Russia launches a nuke, he's gonna come out and go, see, I told you, it was Biden's fault. Remember all the times that I talked about how terrible nuclear was, and under Biden we got nuked. And by the way, the Russians, they've helped him before. I mean, that would be a nuclear case of helping him. So, I mean, can Biden win if a nuke goes off? So I don't know, but he did mention it a curious number of times. So that's halfway speculation there, certainly, or plenty speculation. The part that's not speculation is if Biden doesn't somehow win the war, or if the war gets larger, he's gonna take credit either way. There's no question about that. But the nukes in particular, one might be because if the Russians launch, he wants to take credit. The speculation part is, remember, he had documents about our nuclear secrets. We know that. He took them to Mar-a-Lago. Did he sell our nuclear secrets? Does he know something we don't know about the likelihood of a nuke going off? So, okay, that one is, like I said, speculation based on some things that we know, but it was curious. All right, now back to the absurdities. This is just a fun one. He kept saying, there's a serious element to it too. Our corridors of power. There are corridors of power. Except he kept saying, our corridors of power are Carters. And I was like, what, Jimmy Carter, Rosalind Carter? Which corridors of power do you have? anyways, but the reference there is, remember on January 6th when everybody was in the corridors of Congress, he's saying to them, no, that's our house. That's our corridors of power, and we're gonna take it back. They love that kind of talk. He said, I will fight for you like no one has ever done before. They love that kind of talk. He referred to the Biden administration seemingly as the pause between his two terms. He kept saying, and this drives me crazy, all the Republicans say this, there's an open border. I guarantee you if you polled Republicans, like at least 80% of them would think that the border is literally open, meaning we have no laws that prevent people coming in illegally. That's not remotely true. We have laws around asylum. We have laws around if you're an undocumented immigrant, if we catch you and you don't have an asylum claim, we do not let you in the country. But I bet you it totally works, and the Republicans probably think, the Republican voters think, there's no laws at all. There was under Trump and there isn't under Biden. No, Biden actually kept almost all of Trump's policies about the border. The judges had to overturn them. And the amount of undocumented immigrants that came in under Trump were very similar to the ones that came under Biden. But he makes it seem like nobody came in under him and everybody's pouring in, tens of millions are pouring in under Biden. He kept referring to how he built the wall. There's no wall. He never built the wall. But it doesn't matter. His audience doesn't want the truth. They want lies. So in their imagination, he already built a spectacular wall that covers the entire border. But 3 weeks in, Joe Biden came in and started taking it down. That's why you can't see it now. Biden took it down. No, Biden said stop building this irrelevant part of a tiny little wall that you built that couldn't possibly cover the whole border. It was minuscule, and continuing to make it minuscule times 2 wouldn't have made any difference at all. He didn't build it. The only thing that he accomplished was tax cuts for the rich. And so he talked about a storm and a fire that they will not be able to understand. And in that case, he seemed to be referring to his Republican primary opponents. So it's a big warning to DeSantis and anybody else thinking of coming in. Don't get me wrong, I haven't changed at all, he's saying. I'm still the same OG. And I'm gonna just blast you guys. And that I'm not at all surprised by that. He hilariously talked about unity. We're gonna unify this country. Now why? He's the guy who's ripped the country apart so many times. Because the message of unity worked for Biden in 2020, so they just wanna co-opt it. They wanna say, oh yeah? We're the one who's unifying the country. They're the ones that are splitting it up. Remember, Republican primary voters are the only ones that matter in this portion of the battle. He's just trying to win this battle. And if you tell Republican primary voters that Trump unified and Biden split us up, they believe that in a second. They believe that right away, okay? So, and then there was a vicious part of the speech where he talked about the drug dealers. There's a great irony there. First of all, the drug dealers are terrible. Of course, we all agree to that. He makes it seem like, oh no, the Democrats are pro-drug dealers. Not true, okay? But he said that he wants to bring executions back. You think that sounds brutal? But I bet you tons of Republican primary voters, the great majority of them will love that idea. He wants to execute people within 1 day. He's like, I want to do it like China, bring the guy in, have a trial, basically a show trial, and then execute him by the end of the day. He said that in the speech. Of course, progressives will not be able to help themselves. The left Democrats will not be able to help themselves and say, don't do that. And then that will help them in a Republican primary where they'll be like, execute, execute. They'll love that blood sport, right? He said he could reduce crime by 75 to 80% as soon as he gets in. What a preposterous made up number. Again, every voter in the primary will believe it. The one part that he was right about is, he's like, I don't want any blue ribbon committees. Well, here, brother, on that one. Like all Biden Democrats ever do, set up blue ribbon committees. That's an excuse for not doing anything, although I don't want to do what he's doing. So the irony in the crime thing is, he said, oh, the fentanyl is the worst. That's true. And China is bringing it in. It's partly true. China is producing some of the chemicals that they use in fentanyl, okay? But why did fentanyl explode? It's because of Trump's policy to close the border. When he made it harder to cross the border, they then had to sneak it in quantities that were manageable. And the only way to do that was to shrink it by putting it in the form of fentanyl, which was easier to transport, easier to hide, easier to bring in. Because of Trump doing what he did at the border, even though it didn't work very much in stopping immigrants, it did unfortunately create the epidemic of fentanyl. Not completely by itself, it's not like fentanyl didn't exist before, but it greatly magnified it. So there's a great irony, but could Democrats or DeSantis explain what I just explained to you about fentanyl? There's no chance. So every Republican voter is gonna think that China created it, Trump is gonna stop it, and just by being tough. He kept it simple. The old adage, keep it simple, stupid, where we're gonna be great, they're terrible, they're blood-soaked streets, we're gonna save the country. He referred to himself as a politician and said, oh, I hate that thought. And that's good. All voters hate the idea of politicians, but especially Republicans. He said that he was gonna fight against the Washington establishment. They're gonna love that kind of talk, going back to the theme of drain the swamp that people liked. And now finally, he suggested a number of things to clean up elections. And a couple of them were actually good. So one is the Stock Act. He didn't call it that, but that bans members of Congress from trading based on their insider information. Nancy Pelosi was against that because the #1 trader based on that information is her husband, Paul Pelosi. So her family gets rich off of that. She had to bend to press her later, but she didn't mean it. She doesn't want to pass that bill. A lot of corporate Democrats don't want to pass that bill. Corporate Republicans definitely don't want to pass that bill. Does Trump want to pass it? I don't know, but is it a good campaign strategy to say that you want to pass it? Definitely. Okay, I actually do want to pass it. He said a lifetime ban on lobbying for politicians. If you're a politician, you can't come back and lobby. I love that. I would definitely support that. Does he mean it? He almost never means it. When he was in charge for 4 years, he didn't ban the lobbyists, he enriched the lobbyists. He made the lobbyists a lot more abundant and fruitful. The lobbyists loved Donald Trump. He didn't drain the swamp at all. But if he were to actually institute that ban, I would definitely be in favor of it. We're honest and fair on this show. If he's accidentally or on purpose does something good, I'm happy to give him credit for it. But then he had a couple of things. He said, I want, and constitutional amendment on term limits. You know, I could go either way on that, but it's not an offensive idea at all. It's a perfectly reasonable idea. But the two things that he mentioned make no sense at all about election reform. One, he said, only paper ballots and you have to have only same-day voting. Why? You know what another word for mail-in voting is? Voting. What's wrong? He does mail-in voting. Okay, he brags about how he does mail-in voting. He's such a weird guy. But they know, and Trump has literally said this out loud before, that if you allow more voting overall, Republicans will never win in national office again. He said it earlier. Okay, not in this speech, but he said that out loud because he can't contain himself. So they're trying to greatly restrict the number of people voting so they can get back to Republican victories. In a democracy, they stand almost no chance. And finally, he had this bizarre one. It sounded like he was saying that he's gonna ban public financing of elections. But that would make the country more corrupt because then we have to go to private financing of elections. By the way, you know what's private financing of elections if you're a Republican? George Soros. George Soros is private financing of elections. Do you want that? Woke corporations giving money to politicians is private financing of elections. Public financing means that they might work for the public. Private financing guarantees that politicians work for private interests. So that would make corruption 10 times worse than it is today. So as you can see, there was upsides and downsides to the speech, okay? But we are not the target demographic for that speech, the target audience for that speech. Republican primary voters are. And overall, I thought he did a pretty effective job of reaching them. I don't know what mainstream media and right-wing media are gonna say because they both have narratives that they drive. They all have agendas that they drive. Mainstream media hates Donald Trump, right-wing media is conflicted, right? But an actual assessment of whether that speech worked for his intended purpose was, I would say, 8 out of 10. It largely did work. And again, if you're confused by that, it's because Republican voters don't mind viciousness and they don't mind lies. In fact, they greatly prefer it, and that's what Donald Trump gave them to him. And so there's only 4 ways this ends, guys. Either he loses in humiliating fashion in a Republican primary, awesome. He loses in a humiliating fashion in a general election, awesome. He drops out at some point, that's still possible, even though he announced tonight, if things go disastrously and it looks like he's gonna come in 3rd or 4th or get embarrassed in Iowa or New Hampshire, he might just take his ball and go home right before the voting starts. entirely possible. Or the fourth option is he wins, and that's still on the board. The question is, can Ron DeSantis or anyone else come in and be strong enough to challenge him and punch him in the face politically and punch him and punch him and punch him again and show that they are stronger than Trump? I'm not at all sure of that. Are you really sure of that? Everybody in media that has an agenda says they're sure of it. But have you ever seen Ron DeSantis do that? I've never seen him do it. To a fellow Republican, to Trump, when you see DeSantis' hand motions and he's just copying Trump and doing this, a guy who's trying to copy Trump is less likely to beat Trump. I'm not saying that DeSantis can't win. He has monumental advantages. At the end of the speech, I still have it at 50-50 on whether he wins the Republican nomination. All right, so that's my analysis of it. I know we got to go, but I do want to do shout outs here. Oh, D. Higginbotham is a new member. Mr. Briefs, I'm going to read these comments and comment on them real quick. These are YouTube members. Mr. Briefs said, nice of him to give Eric a special moment to feel like such a proud boy. And part of the reason he did that is because he's one of the few guys who showed up. So he's like, oh, my one kid that showed up, there you are. Hey, attaboy, Eric. Oh, Sunshine Movers, new member, love it, thank you. Juan Abrams 25 said, only one day to vote. Will election day become a holiday? I don't think Republicans will allow that to happen. Of course not, they don't want that at all. That would lead to more voting. Michael Allen said, oh yeah, because now the country's a laughingstock, and was definitely not a laughingstock from 2017 to 2021. We were a international embarrassment under Trump. They literally laughed at him at the United Nations when he gave a speech. Mecca Womack says, the amount of alternative facts that I'm hearing in this speech, and this MF said he's a victim, only in America. That Gen X dude said, where's the gong show when we needed LOL? He really was dragging in the middle of the speech. That part is true too. Heather Maxwell said, Orange Hitler continues his comedy set to another loss in 2024. Ugh, can he disappear already? Yeah, don't count on him disappearing, that's for sure. Lindsey Gibson said, I wish so much that the FBI was there to cuff him before he had a chance to talk. Could you imagine? When I read that comment, Lindsey, I thought, imagine the FBI does another raid in the middle of the speech, because they're at Mar-a-Lago. That would have been amazing. I don't want that. That would have been poor form, okay? But it just would have been funny. E. Johnson says, can't wait to see him run and lose. It's going to be great. My popcorn, pipe, and drinks are ready. Let's go, let's go. Anthony Delveridge and Fod C are members. Thank you. Raji K said, didn't 45 lose the popular vote twice? I suppose he won't mention that. You were right, he did not. On Twitch, Neon Death 07 said, no escalator? Mary Animal said about the crowd, damn, that's a lot of white people. Octo Squiddy said, what's the over-under on how long it takes Trump to say 2020 election was stolen? My guess is approximately 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's my stretch guess. Well, your guess is pretty good. He didn't have it in the prompter, so he didn't mention it for a while. I was trying to keep a little bit of track, but about 5 or 6 minutes in, he went off prompter to mention it. So pretty good guess. Mickey C. the Silver Dragon says, oh, Cenk, please thank Edwin or whoever was laughing and commenting in the background for giving us the comic relief we so desperately needed. It was Edwin, and thank you, Edwin, okay? He's right there. He says, you're welcome. Shy Coltrane 42 in the member section said, JFC not more than 2 seconds into his announcement, and he's already making disgusting racist comments. Yeah, he's going back to the golden oldies. Camp Corona Dad says, Cenk, you say it's going to be a fight, but now that he's officially in, will anyone have the spine to actually announce after him? Camp Corona Dad, it's a great point, and I'm going to give you a $100 gift card from Blue Apron. Go to rewards@tyt.com to get it. And the reason why it's a great point is, I bet you right now on cable news, there's not a single analyst that'll say, yes, but does anyone have the gonads to actually challenge him and fight him? Fight him, right? They just keep saying that DeSantis is going to win. DeSantis is the best. DeSantis should be the candidate and Trump isn't. But they're never going to talk about what you said, which is anybody willing to get in the ring and fight this guy? So $100 free gift card for you Camp Corona Dad from Blue Apron. Textan says, everything Trump says makes me giggle now that he has no chance of getting reelected. No, brother, I wish that were true, but it isn't. He said, this is going to be super entertaining this time around. He isn't down, guys. Or if he's down, he's not out. Janky Cenk, which is an interesting handle, said, didn't Trump want to drop a nuclear bomb in a hurricane? Hashtag dumbass. I'm going to give another $100 for that one, okay? If you're a member, it pays, man, it literally pays. So thank you for reminding me of that. He's like, nuclear, I hate it so much, I don't even want to say it. Except in a meeting in the White House, when a hurricane category 5 was approaching, he said, can't we just nuke it? I mean, just monumentally dumb, okay? They're like, no, sir, that would only spread the radiation further and would devastate the country. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I knew that. And then a lot of people said this, Travel Nurse Dragon, why does he sniffle like that? Did he just do a line of coke? And then Strategic Diversity Dragon said a fresh coat of bronzer and cocaine. So I don't know, I've never done cocaine. I know that people sniffle on it. I don't know why he sniffles, there could be a couple of different reasons. But yes, he did do his classic throughout the speech. So make of that whatever you will. Dragon with the girl tattoo, a little much, but says, looks like Nazi salutes, but with phones when they were all holding their phones up. No, people hold their phones up. So, but you're stretching a little bit on that one. BTC wrote in earlier, said, I love when we get together to watch and comment in real time. That's why I wanted to read your comments. I love that we're a community. I love that we do this together and the members make that possible. TYT.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. Seven Wolf said, thank you, Cenk, you're helping me through this. No problem. And last ones are the super chats. Left is Best said, loving Cenk's commentary in the comments in the chat. Everyone knows we're watching a walking, talking dumpster fire. That part is true, but Republican primary voters might like that dumpster fire. Brendan Golden says, idiot was a president during a war and almost started another one with Iran, but went decades without a war. Laughable. Yeah, he literally said in the speech, God, I love your comments. You're catching the things that I forgot to mention, and I love doing this together. He said during the speech, when I was president, we didn't have war for decades. You were president for 4 years, how can it be for decades, you dumbass? Okay, so thank you for reminding me of that, Brendan. Dr. Ocho said, why does he keep mentioning about nuclear weapons? He literally just had a scandal relating to mishandling of nuclear information. See, Dr. Ocho, I was thinking the same exact thing. That's why I did the speculation and analysis about, wait, that's weird that he mentioned it like 1,000 times. Canale said, this is so embarrassing and pathetic, blew all the way. Republicans need another strategy for 2024, and this embarrassment is not it. And I've been keeping talking about how Republican primary voters are going to react, but remember, they also have to keep in mind, he has to run in a general election, and he's deeply disliked in the country, and he would have a much harder time in a general election, but he'd be running against the Democrat, so. Nicholas Harvey says, Cenk, is Trump still going to pick Carrie Lake for VP, or will he go with someone else because of her loss and therefore electability weakness? Impossible to know what's going to happen in that crazy mind of his, and he'll probably change his mind 17 times, make the decision at the very end based on whatever came across the screen. So there's no way of knowing for sure. Jessica Smith says, Cenk, we love you for doing this after hours. Jessica, we love you for making it possible through Super Chat and through becoming a member. Trish Marie says, keep up the great work. TYT Ray Russell says, does he have a lapel mic inside his nose? Why is he sniffing so loud? Foamy Slobbers makes fun of him, says, just look at Gaglugla, they're paying more now. Okay, Joe Woody says, I like how he praises Mexico, then immediately goes back to them poisoning us. He's both good cop and bad cop, impressive to be honest. Jonathan Sismezik says, the longer this goes on, the more my brain cells I can feel actively decaying. Jonathan, I hear you on that too. I was worried about my brain cells watching it. He went on too long. Ray Russell said, everything he's saying is so incredibly vague, like no one's ever seen many, we did it strongly, etc. But remember though, that's an advantage in politics because the more vague you keep it, the more people put in their wishes and dreams into what you're saying, even if you didn't say it. To be honest, Obama was a master at that. And Trump does it on a much lower level, less educated level. That's why he has to, instead of doing it in the sophisticated way that Obama did, where you're like, wait, was he just praising me? I'm not sure. Okay, I think I like this guy, right? Trump just goes in and goes, me strong, me keep you safe, safe. Okay, we're gonna be great. Okay, and just repeats those words endlessly. That Gen X dude says, make common sense great again. TYT, one love. Rose Hill says, Australia uses paper ballots. We have an independent election commission. It still takes days at a time, especially if close. He has no idea. Of course, paper ballots will make it longer, not shorter. Okay, but he doesn't have to make sense, he's Trump. Caroline Roberts says, we don't forget elections we don't all have dementia. True, but I'm worried about Trump. Brittany Stanley says, I hope he helps the GOP devour itself and crumble. And that is, Brittany, by the way, that's also incredibly possible. That's part of the 50% where he not only loses, but he drags down the entire Republican Party with him as he takes his voters and goes home with him, or enough of the voters. Benjamin GL says $10 for that massive comment, Cenk, LMFAO. When he said, we're gonna make America safe again, that spells massa. And that unfortunately does fit for Trump. Janice Totham Davies says Trump is truly horrific. Nina Turner's Pet Dragon says the speech was long, untrue, and redundant, but some of his ideas such as insider trading were good, but I feel that part was a lie as well. See right there, our audience understands this better than any analyst in the rest of the news. That's exactly right. There's a couple of parts that, as you heard me in the analysis say, were actually good. Does he actually believe it? Very unlikely. The only things that he cares about is things that affect him personally, and he even said that during his speech. He's like, that one affects me personally, I care a lot about it. Okay, you're not supposed to say that out loud. You've been pretending the whole time that you care about them and protecting them and keeping them safe, etc. And last one, Ms. Truly said, I'm so confused. That was coherent and on topic. He learned how to read a teleprompter, which could be even scarier, savvier the second time around. No, yeah, he did it. He has gotten better on reading the prompter, fairest show in America. And whoever wrote the speech did a pretty good job of being appropriately vicious and non-factual. He did a decent job of delivering it. But like I said earlier, anytime he went off prompter, he's like, I'm the victim, I've been persecuted. And that's not gonna play well. By the way, if the headlines coming out of this is, quote, I'm the victim, that's a little misleading. That was a small part of the speech. That was not a large part of the speech. You would emphasize that if you wanted to do a hatchet job, if I'm being honest. So let's see, one article or two articles with him saying I'm a victim, okay. But if the primary headlines are that way, they were looking for the worst part of the speech to emphasize. That's us being honest as usual.
Hey, Cenk.
Yes, Bart.
You have to admit this was the best moment of the speech.
Please sit down. I feel so guilty having you stand.
Oh yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
That's the best part, right?
Yeah, so we'll exit on the point about exiting. Okay, so Bart, thanks for bringing that up. Every once in a while, C-SPAN cameras would go to the audience and they were sitting. And then as I was doing the play-by-play, a couple of guys got up to leave. It was kind of awkward. And I mentioned that in the coverage. And then Trump says, thank you for standing up, but I don't feel bad not wanting to make you stand all this time. No, and then the camera showed the audience. Everybody's sitting except the guy's leaving. Okay, he's such a hilarious liar and he's so insecure. But how's it gonna end at the end? Still don't know. All right, guys, we're gonna have a great show for you tomorrow. Remember, of course, Young Turks, 6 o'clock. And the Larry Elder interview, unfortunately, has been moved many times. But I swear, 5:30 p.m., I interview Larry Elder. It's a super interesting debate. 6 o'clock, Young Turks, every day Eastern. We'll see you there.
In the caravans, I love the name, I came up with it.
I don't have teleprompters here, folks. I don't need teleprompters. It's called like up here, and it's called memory, and it's called other things.
Sit down, I feel so guilty having you stand.